Gang, which indictment is the strongest? Which indictment is the strongest? John Bolton, James Comey, or Letitia James? I've listed them alphabetically. John Bolton, James Comey, or Letitia James. To me, it's a no-brainer, and I'll explain in just a moment. What a night of football last night. One 40-year-old and one 41-year-old QB. I loved it. I loved it. I was rooting for both Joe Flacco in Cincinnati and Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. And in the end, despite having a combined age of 81, a very exciting game. It ended 33-31. 33-31. Did I say, yeah, I said it right. I said it right. What an exciting game. What an exciting game. And I love rooting for the old guys. The older I get, the more that I root for all of you. Live bet on sports while you're watching the action. It's fun to have skin in the game. Here's what's coming up this weekend. Michigan, a 5.5-point home fave hosting Washington. Michigan State, 27-point road underdog. I like that kind of a spread. At third-ranked Indiana. They're having a hell of a season. Sunday Pro Football. Philly at Minnesota. New York hosting Carolina. Monday Night Football. Detroit, a 4.5-point home fave with Tampa Bay. That'll be a great game. You can always bet more than the score. Bet player performance in football and more. Bet college and pro football at Play Gun Lake and at Parks Casino. New users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. I'm about 3 weeks away from my Stories and Cigar night at Parks, all sold out. It's going to be fun. You got to be 21 and located in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Michigan. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Remember, the poll question yesterday at Smerconish.com asked, will President Trump give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine? Not should he. I thought if it were should he, it would be 70 to 80% who would say, yes, he should, because the hawkish answer always has won out on the poll questions ever since Russia invaded Ukraine. Instead, I asked, will he? And this is one of the closest margins that we've ever had. 29,978 voted. 50.57 said no, and 49.43% said yes. I can only tell you this, that in the short term, he's not going to do it. And maybe it's a good thing, because maybe the prospect of giving Ukraine Tomahawk missiles, these long-range, very precise missiles, perhaps it's already served a purpose, because yesterday President Trump spoke with President Putin, and the two are now going to have a meeting that was not in the cards, as of a couple of days ago. President Trump set to host Ukrainian President Zelensky today in the Oval Office, so we'll learn more. But it would seem, logic would dictate that the prospect of giving Ukraine the Tomahawks is what has been the impetus for another meeting between Putin and Trump, and that could happen as soon as next week. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing, and hopefully, there's some light at the end of that tunnel. And I guess I'll be asking this question after that meeting if it doesn't bear fruit. The Friday poll question. Do you ever hear the expression, show me the man and I'll show you the crime? Show me the man, I'll find the crime, I think it was. I have the history on it, and I'll share that with you in a moment. I'm thinking of doing a call segment on radio today where people get to call with the anonymity of dialing into the program. And I will ask them, if we ever took a close look at you, the way in which investigators have taken a close look at Letitia James, James Comey, and John Bolton, would we find anything? Would we find anything? Of course, in the last 3 weeks, all three have been indicted. It's hard not to see this as lawfare of the same type that was used against President Trump. I'm asking you today to evaluate the three cases. I know that's a hard poll question, but one of the reasons that I wanted to ask it is, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think that the strongest case based on the public record is the case against John Bolton. I think the Comey case is the most, I think it's the most easily characterized as a selective prosecution. The Comey case reminds me, Comey facing charges of lying to Congress and obstructing justice because of testimony in 2020 I think that's most reminiscent of Alvin Bragg stitching together the case that he brought against Donald Trump, which, by the way, was successful. And then, ultimately, Trump received relief from the Supreme Court. But I think that the Comey case is a hard one. It's not exactly clear to me which part of the testimony is actionable, if any. You also have to go and watch that testimony. He was in Alexandria, Virginia, in his home. They had technical issues. I bring that up because I think it lends itself to Comey saying, well, that's not really what I was saying. There was a technical issue. I was actually addressing this. But I think it's a weak case. I thought that the Letitia James case, which is a mortgage fraud case, simply explained, I thought that was very straightforward in a way that reminded me of Mar-a-Lago. You had the stuff, it wasn't yours, you refused to give it back. Straightforward, and they had all the text messages, and they had all the television camera images that showed the boxes being moved around and so forth. I thought similarly, the Letitia James case was pretty straightforward. Hey, you got a lower interest rate by saying that this was going to be a primary residence and not an investment property. And then you used it as an investment property. But it's a little more complicated than that. Because the Wall Street Journal did a deep dive that showed how complicated the case really is. Prosecutors say she signed a second home rider on her mortgage, promising to use the property personally, not as a rental. And then investigators later found family members living there, and they argue that, she misrepresented in order to get the loan. But here's the rub. Apparently, she didn't charge rent to the family members. So I think it's not as if she got the lower interest rate by saying this is going to be a primary residence, and then here's a lease that we have where she's been collecting the rent. So I don't think that's an easy case. I don't think the case against Comey is easy, and I don't think that the case against Letitia James is easy, which brings us to John Bolton, the controversial one-time national security advisor. He reminds me of Comey in that he seems friendless in Washington. It seems like, everybody comes out loaded for bear against Comey from both ends of the political spectrum, and now the same can be said of Bolton. He's charged under the Espionage Act, not with espionage. Danny Savalos is going to be my guest on radio today. We'll go through all of this. For allegedly retaining and sharing classified information, but not in the form that we normally, nobody's saying that he's a spy, although apparently he was spied on by the Iranians. I'm holding in my hand the indictment against Bolton, and there's a paragraph that I want to read to you. Paragraph 11. From about April 9, 2018 through on or about September 15, 2019, on a regular basis, Bolton sent diary-like entries to individuals 1 and 2, believed to be his wife and daughter, that contained information classified up to the top secret SCI level. Bolton wrote many of these diary-like entries by transcribing his handwritten notes from his day's activities into word processing documents, which he then electronically sent to individuals 1 and 2 through a commercial non-governmental managing application. On other occasions, Bolton used his personal non-governmental email accounts, such as email accounts hosted by AOL and Google, to email information classified up to the top secret SCI level to individuals 1 or 2 at their personal email accounts. At no point did he have authorization to store or transmit the classified information that he sent to these individuals, nor at any time did they have authorization to know or store the classified information that he gave to them. And you might be saying, well, wait a minute, he was sending diary-like information. He wasn't giving them documents. It doesn't matter. Classified information doesn't necessarily be reduced to a document for you to be breaking the law if you're sharing it. If Bolton has classified information and he verbally conveys it, he's in violation of these laws. The other paragraph is a few paragraphs later, which says, and this lets you know the seriousness of it, at some point, between when Bolton left government service in September of 2019 and July of 2021, a cyber actor believed to be associated with the Islamic Republic of Iran hacked Bolton's personal email account and gained unauthorized access to the classified and national defense information. So I think on its face, the Bolton case is a strong case. Let me go back to where I began. Show me the man, I'll find you the crime. I knew it gets said slightly different in different ways, and I knew the expression. I wasn't sure. I had to be reminded of the origin. Do a Google search, and you will find that it comes from Stalin's Soviet Union, attributed to Lavrentiy Beria, sometimes attributed to Andrei Vyshinsky. In that system, the process worked backward. First came the target, then came the evidence. An American judge, a very highly regarded, famous American judge, Alex Kosinski, in 2015 wrote it this way. Actually, he was coming at it a different way. That when the Soviets said it, they're like, we can find some dirt under the fingernails of anybody, and they would make it up if they couldn't. Judge Kosinski had a slightly different take. He said there are so many laws that no one can count them, much less obey them all. Most people are unaware of how easy it is to break the law. Indeed, we are all criminals now. Some of us just haven't been caught. I could do a call segment. I might do a call segment on that today. I wonder, would people call and say, yeah, I'm breaking the law? If there were scrutiny applied to you the way that Letitia James, James Comey, and John Bolton are now facing, would we find something? That could be a fun call segment. That could be a fun call segment. Go vote on today's poll question. Tell me which of these three claims is the strongest, Bolton, Comey, or James. Hands down, I say it's Bolton for the reasons that I've articulated. Mingle Project. The Mingle Project, episode 5 coming next week. So please get caught up on the first 4 episodes. Episode 5 is coming next week, and episode 6 the week after. I may or may not tell you a funny story later about one of the guests that I've booked because I've wanted him for a long time, and I finally locked him in. So proud of the Mingle Project video. You can check that out. Today's radio program, Danny Savalos in the first hour, talking about what I've just described, the indictment of these 3 Trump opponents. Nancy Mace, yes, Representative Nancy Mace on today's program as well. 3 weeks ago today, I guess, I was on Bill Maher with her. And then the third hour of the program today, I'm really excited about this. John Malone, the cable titan, the entrepreneur, the philanthropist. I mean, this is the guy who really was at the top of the food chain for CNN and Sirius XM during the course of my tenure. So to interview him is really a treat, and I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to love this conversation with John Malone. Give TC some play. It is a Friday. That means she dropped TC After Dark yesterday, and I will see you on CNN tomorrow. YouTube at 7:30. We do it live on a Saturday, and then my CNN program at 9. Finally, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and set yourself up for notifications so that conversations like we're having right now are always an opportunity for you to be on board and watching. Okay? Go vote on the poll question, gang, and thank you so much.